Folks, what is the biggest offseason priority left for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? It is a question that can have a lot of different types of answers, but Around the NFL podcast co host Mark Sessler gave his opinion on what he feels the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' biggest offseason priority left is for this team, and we're going to be looking at it and analyzing it. I am not alone in this video. Joining me is my good friend and colleague, Mr. Evan Wanish of BucsNation.com and the Cannon Fire podcast. Evan, how you doing today?
Hello, hello. It's been a little bit. I think the last time I was on was the draft live stream, so it's been a little bit, and happy to be back on.
Happy to have you back on. No video today, but you are joining me with the audio. And firstly here, biggest remaining offseason priority for each NFC team. Could trade winds blow for quarterbacks? This is ominous and also a little bit of foreshadowing for the Bucs here from Mark Sessler. And we're not going to look at every team's here. You know, there's a lot of different teams here with the Falcons, ponder swap for Ryan Tannehill, Carolina Panthers, talking about Frank Reich and Bryce Young. But if we go all the way down to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, Evan, you go past the 49ers, you go past the Seattle Seahawks, you're here with the Buccaneers. And Mark Sessler says this: top priority, honesty under center. And the paragraph reads as follows: Tampa's busy pitching Baker Mayfield versus Kyle Trask as a viable quarterback competition in a post-Tom Brady universe. Maybe Trask can play. Maybe there's more to Baker's career than a hot and cold quarterback three teams have passed on. Bruce Arians adores Mayfield. The former coach openly lobbied for the Browns job in 2018 for the chance to guide the quarterback's career. Now an in-house Tampa consultant, Arians has his guy, but the Bucs must advance with eyes wide open. There's talent on this roster inside a winnable division. If it's clear you don't have a quarterback in camp, swinging a trade for Stafford, Tannehill, or fill in the blank sends a statement to the team: we're not mailing this in. Evan, what are your thoughts on this paragraph and this overall assessment of the Buccaneers quarterback situation right now? Because to me, it definitely, there's a lot. I will just say there's a lot to break down here regarding this paragraph. But what are your initial thoughts?
Well, the overall message about there being uncertainty at quarterback is correct. I mean, there's certainly uncertainty at quarterback heading into training camp here, and there might even be some uncertainty heading into the regular season at this point. We don't know. Uh, but the more he gets into detail, um, when talking about options, none of the options just appear very likely or plausible at all. The Bucs are still very cap strapped. They were able to manage a lot of it, bringing back key free agents, adding a few free agents, but they still are strapped for cash, and that doesn't change just because the bulk of free agency is over. And he talks about acquiring a high priced veteran. Ryan Tannehill was a guy I think could be available, but he's like I said, his contract's pretty high. Matthew Stafford, the Rams have given no indication that Matthew Stafford is available, so I'm not sure why he would be a name mentioned. It's pretty clear to me that the Bucs are content with seeing what they have with both Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask in 2023 and just assessing it from there. I think they realize that this team probably isn't going to win a championship this year, and that's okay. Sometimes teams need like a gap year, pretty much, and I think this could be the Buccaneers' gap year. So I understand what he's saying about how okay, there's uncertainty there. You may want to send a message and show like, hey, you think you can compete, but I think it would have sent more of a message if the Buccaneers hadn't brought in a guy like Baker Mayfield. If they had signed maybe a lower profile guy and just said, "Hey, Trask, it's going to be his job. He's never really started an NFL game, but it's going to be his job." That's a different message. But I think trying to sign Baker Mayfield and signing Baker Mayfield attempts to give your team sort of that sign that, hey, we know, like we're not oblivious to it. We know that this team is going to have a drop off at quarterback, but we also think that you can still compete. And I just think trading for a veteran at this point uh, doesn't make much sense. And it's not very likely, like at all.
And I want to say this: look, hey, nothing against Mark Sessler. Obviously, it's a very tough thing to cover every single team in the league. It's a very difficult thing. He had to do this for all 32 teams. I get it. Eventually, you probably do get to a point where you just go, here's some like general thoughts, right? And that's fine. I understand that. Like you said, I think the overall message of this is reasonable. Yes, their top priority is going to be figuring out who their quarterback is. Of course, that's their top priority. But a couple of things that get me in the paragraph here is Bruce Arians adores Baker Mayfield. He openly lobbied for the Browns job in 2018. Arians has his guy. Nevin, look, again, nothing against Mark Sessler here, but Bruce Arians doesn't exactly have the biggest role in the Buccaneers organization anymore. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, technically, if you look, technically he's still a part of the organization, and that's going to be that way until pretty much he decides he doesn't want to. But at the same time, yeah, he's not sitting there calling the shots. Like this is Jason Light's team. I mean, can you ask his opinion? Bruce Arians' opinion on a guy, sure, but his opinion isn't changing Jason Light's mind one way or the other, whether Bruce Arians was the head coach or in the role he is now. But like he had more pull as the head coach because he was coaching the team. Now he's not even coaching the team, so he doesn't have. He's with the organization, but he's not to say he Arians got his guy. Yes, Arians likes Baker Mayfield, but that's not the sole purpose and reason that Baker Mayfield was signed by Tampa.
Yeah, and that's an important thing to note here is that Todd Bowles is the head coach of this football team now. Dave Canales is the offensive coordinator. Like, again, Bruce Arians, he's still technically a part of the organization, but he isn't that involved anymore. So that was the first thing where I was kind of like, huh, okay, that's an interesting take on this situation. But the second thing that got me, and you did mention it here, swinging a trade for Stafford, Tannehill, or fill in the blank. Send a statement to the team, we're not mailing this in. It is a lot easier said than done in terms of just saying, yeah, just swing a trade for Matthew Stafford or Ryan Tannehill. Evan, right now as it stands, the Bucs are still trying to figure out in jumping through some hoops regarding their salary cap situation. And it's going to be a thing that's going to continue to be, obviously it was a topic at the beginning of the offseason, in the middle of the offseason, and now it's a topic now. The Bucs are strapped for cash. So like you said, yeah, just swing a trade for Stafford or Tannehill or whatever veteran. That's something that is certainly a lot easier said than done, right?
Yes, yeah, it's not you're not playing Madden with the cap turned off here, So and like I said, Ryan Tannehill, okay, if you want to talk about realistic things, if the Bucs even had the cash, right? Let's say the Bucs had the cap space and you want to talk about a name they could pursue, Ryan Tannehill is a name. However, and again, there has been no indication from the Los Angeles Rams that they are willing to stop Matthew Stafford. I mean, they're sort of in a similar spot that the Bucs are right now. I think they're sort of looking at this as a gap year, kind of get their financials in order, get some draft picks, sort of reset a little bit, not necessarily a rebuild, but sort of a retool. So I don't see the Rams going for that at all. And at this point, like, does Matthew Stafford make the Bucs better? Sure, but like again, it's not realistic because there's nothing that is indicated that A, the Bucs are even interested in Matthew Stafford, and B, that the Rams are interested in dealing him. And even if the Bucs were interested in trading for him, and the Rams were interested in dealing him, the money situation it just doesn't work out. So regardless of what they want to do there.
Yeah, and I think here it says if it's clear you don't have a quarterback in camp, swing a trade for Stafford, Tannehill, fill in the blank. Look, folks, it's going to be either Trask or Baker. I mean, that's Evan. I think you agree with me on that. One of those two guys is going to be your starting quarterback. If they both do abysmal in training camp, which I don't think is, a super likely scenario, Evan. I think you would agree with that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, There's going to be ups and downs, and I'm going to be curious to see, what's the snap share of each guy. In
Hmm.
the preseason games, how much time does Baker Mayfield get compared to Kyle Trask? Is Baker Mayfield with the starters one time and Trask isn't? Is Trask with the starters and Mayfield isn't? So I think you sort of have to establish a leader in the clubhouse for the job earlier on because you're going to want that quarterback to get the most reps with the starters. But yeah, I mean, you know, look, despite what you think of Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, they could, really struggle during the season. But during training camp, things are very like training camps lie almost. I remember in 2014, Josh McCown, the ball never hit the ground in training camp. I mean, he was just completing pass after pass after pass. He looked fantastic. And then when it came to the regular season, it didn't turn out that way. So I would think, or even if both struggle during the preseason and training camp, that's not going to prompt you to make a move that drastic to you know trade for a veteran. I just don't see that.
And the point I was trying to make was, even if those guys are struggling in training camp, and like I mean like they would have to be struggling pretty darn bad, Evan, for the Bucs to say, well, let's take a look at some other options. I think that is a fair thing to say. They'd have to be struggling bad. Even then, don't see him swinging a trade. Maybe you go out and sign a guy like Carson Wentz and just say, hey, just in case, we'll have another vet or a Teddy Bridgewater or something. Just, hey, learn the playbook. Maybe we'll have you on the practice squad just in case. That may happen, but that's the only thing. It doesn't seem viable to swing a trade for a Stafford or a Tannehill or whoever it may be. Signing another veteran, maybe. You also have John Wolford there, which, is what it is. But yeah, it would have to be a pretty bad situation, I would think, for the Bucs to lose all confidence in both of those guys to the point where they're really having to take a serious look at making some big crazy type of move and having to readjust their salary cap space and everything in between. So that's kind of our thoughts on that situation there. But folks, hey, we want to know your thoughts. Do you agree with this paragraph that came from Mark Sessler here? I think that me and Evan both agree that yes, the top priority is honesty under center, like Mark Sessler writes here, and finding who your quarterback is going to be. But how much is Bruce Arians involved in it, and what are their options in terms of outside options at that quarterback position? That's where you get kind of some murkier waters in terms of the analysis there. But we want to know your guys' thoughts and opinions. Let us know them down in the comment section below. We would love to hear them. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed. Go check out Evan's work, by the way, at BucsNation.com and the Cannon Fire podcast. They've got some fantastic shows in the works. Evan, I want to thank you again for being on. It is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. Like I said, it's been a minute, so yeah, I'm happy to be on. And yeah, go check out Can Fire Podcast. Going to be having a lot of cool stuff coming up. So
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope y'all enjoyed. And as always, folks, we'll see you on the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.